Hello and welcome to the Stateside Soccer Show. My name is Jordan, and with me, as always, and sometimes when I'm not here as well, like the past 2 weeks, is Logan. How are you, Logan?
Yeah, I should have started the last couple of podcasts like that. And as always, I'm not. Wait, what? Yeah, no, Jordan, it's rough. I don't know how you do it. I really don't. I don't know how you. Like, I've hosted my own podcast, but for some reason, I stumble through intros. But it's so good to have you back, Jordan. It's so much better looking at somebody else on the other side of the screen and not just talking to myself. I get to drink water, like they let me drink water,
Yeah.
unlike Heinz's. So I'm pretty excited about that. But Jordan, welcome back. Congratulations on the
Thanks.
baby. And let everybody know that he's going to be the next number 9. So I'm hoping that you agree with me on that. But
He's
I
going to be a
told them
number
to.
10, but yeah.
Okay. Okay. Can he play like a kind of like a double striker kind of thing? Or
Yeah, he's pretty much going to be the Landon Donovan. He's going to start as a striker, kind of move backwards
Hmm.
throughout, his career and be the big name player for years to come. He was almost born on July 4th, which was man, that's what I was hoping for.
Yeah.
I'm like, July 4th, named after Landon Donovan. I was like, this kid is destined, right? But
Right.
no, born a
Yeah.
few days before that. So
I was going to say, yeah, that would have been a great story on
it would
Fox
have,
because,
yeah.
gosh, do they need some good stories?
Yeah. No, it feels good to be back. First podcast for Stateside Soccer Show back. It's my second podcast overall back since
Mhm.
I took my leave. So it feels good to do this. It always feels good to kind of get back in the groove of things whenever there's time off. And man, it was killing me not being on last week. I probably could have swung it, but we were
Yeah.
also introducing the dogs to the baby, and I was like, this is not the day. This is not the day that this is gonna happen.
Yeah.
Because man, I had some thoughts with what that was before the official news of Gregg out, and then
Yeah.
we got the Gregg out stuff, and even you were talking about maybe going live, and I was thinking like, oh, maybe I can make that work for me. Maybe I can jump on, or maybe but like last week was kind of a mess.
Hmm.
So I kind of like that now we can share all of those thoughts together. Because there's a lot to talk about because I think so. We'll start with Gregg out, right? If I titled the StreamYard Gregg out for people
Oh,
that are
I was just kicking Greg's out left and right when they were trying to join. I thought that
anytime
was
to join, you're like, no,
yeah.
get out of here.
No, Greg.
Greg's with 2 G's can stay. Greg's with
Yeah.
3 G's can't. Um, so starting with Gregg Berhalter out. Now, it took longer than I think many would have liked, but I think the way some fans were reacting, Logan, were entitled brats, is what I'll say. Um, I even said on the live right before, I went live the day we
Mhm.
lost to Panama, and that was like a few days before we were going to the hospital, and I knew I was going to be out for the rest of the next few weeks. And I said,
Jordan out. Yeah.
yeah, I was like, if we don't beat Uruguay that night or the next day, Gregg should be out. That was a little reactionary for me. I don't think I thought that was actually going to happen as fast. And if you look at the history of the Confederation, not the Confederation, of the Soccer Federation, CONCACAF unfortunately does not kick out coaches, but the Soccer Federation, USSF, when when it's time to make a move, they usually make the move. So I don't really understand where all the pessimism comes from when people are like, they always do this. It's like, when we rehired Gregg, that's really the only time I can think of that they really let me down as a fan, right? Like when you look at it, Bob Bradley got a humiliating loss in 2011's Gold Cup final. I remember that day because it was the day before my birthday, I believe. I was at the Ironbirds game. I was celebrating my birthday. I'm checking the scores of the Gold Cup in 2011. We had a lead against Mexico. We blow it. We lose the Gold Cup final. And it felt like that was the time to make the change, right? Bob Bradley, it was a year out after 2010's World Cup. he had the highs of 2009 Confederations Cup. We actually did very well in 2010. It may not look like we did, but there was a phantom offsides that stopped us from beating Slovenia, which we should have done. There was no offsides on Michael Bradley. That goal should have stood. So uh, in that case, we actually did pretty well. Of course, we lost to Ghana again. That's just a constant theme when it comes to U.S. men's national team and playing against tough Ghana. And that was when it was like, all right, it feels like it's time to move on from Bob Bradley, right? I think I was actually at that point beforehand. We got, I think it was Spain we lost to after the 2010 World Cup. I think we had a friendly against them in 2010 or 2011 that we got blown out. And I was like, all right, maybe this is time to move on. Took a little bit longer, took through the Gold Cup for us to do that. And they moved on. But now here's the thing. It felt like, if in my memory, that happened pretty quickly. It actually happened a month afterwards because 2011, Logan, there was a Women's World Cup, which means that they did not want the focus to be on the men at that time. So they waited until the Women's World Cup was done and then fired Bob Bradley. Appropriate move, in my opinion. 20, we hired Klinsmann, which I was all for, and then regret. But then we get to 20. I was calling for Klinsmann's firing pretty much as soon as he dropped Donovan, right? But okay, so you get to 2014, we did all right at the World Cup. Then 2015 Gold Cup, we lose to Panama. We lose to Jamaica, and then we lost to Panama in the third place match. And that's when I was really like, all right, we got to get Klinsmann out. That was the hashtag then. Hashtag Klinsmann out, right? And then we moved, and they waited a bit, right? That was something that I would probably say, all right, maybe they should have fired. I think they should have fired him after the World Cup. Again, I'm kind of at this point now where after a cycle, move on. But they fired him after we had a really bad start to the World Cup qualifying, and it was dire to try to qualify for 2018. Bruce Arena steps in, which seemed like the appropriate move here. You need somebody familiar with the pool to step up at that moment. Everybody was pretty much on board with the Arena hiring, in my recollection. It didn't pan out, right? And then I think it was that night, or like Bruce Arena stepped down, and then we had the whole like Sunil Gulati got ousted from USSF. Like all of that stuff started happening after the aftermath of the 2018 failure. So, in my opinion, everything's kind of been done correctly most of the time in a timely manner. So, having to wait less than a week, or what was a week from our departure of the tournament, that's fine. I think that's fine. Like I understand, like Ecuador fired their coach like immediately after the Argentina loss.
Yeah,
But
he was on the field still, I think.
yeah, but
It's like, dude, you're fired. What?
I don't understand why everybody has been so negative on that aspect of it. And then of course you already have the people looking for the negatives in firing Gregg. They're like, oh well, we're just gonna hire somebody else. How about you let it play out? Let it play out for once in your life and then react instead of reacting and thinking you're causing this. Logan, I was seeing people trying to get AT&T to stop sponsoring the U.S. men's national team because they still employed Gregg Berhalter. And I'm like, one, we want sponsors for this team, so that doesn't work. AT&T doesn't care. AT&T has no care. You're not actually contributing at all to the firing of Gregg Berhalter. I'll tell you this much. He was going to get fired whether you started this hashtag Gregg out or boycott that you were going to try to do, whatever. He was already going. And then you have these BS accounts spreading made up rumors about all of this stuff. They start going back to the John Anthony Brooks stuff, and they're like, well, it sounds like the leadership team actually kicked him out of the squad, and then all this stuff starts coming up that is not sourced by actual journalists. And I'll tell you what, I take all of that with the giant lump of salt, the biggest lump of salt I've ever had in my life, because how can I trust an account that already has biases to give me the proper news? And they're saying like, oh, well, Crocker didn't want to fire Gregg, and actually, it's everybody else that wants to fire Gregg. He doesn't want to fire Gregg. I'm like, you don't know that. You actually do not know that. And the fact is, I think Crocker would have made this move anyway because he just got hired last year. This is his stamp to make here on the team. I have a quote from him I'll read later. And if anything, if they wanted to fire Gregg and Crocker says no, then they would just fire Crocker. So I don't think he would be like, this is the line I'm digging in the sand. It's just BS being spewed constantly on the timeline, and I'm sick of it.
No, you make good points. I think you were the quick to tell me which I mean, I know what accounts were doing it, but yeah, no, it was all over the timeline. Like I think it was every single Twitter account that's ever managed, and all up and down. And honestly, it's all speculation. It's all accounts trying to identify themselves as the leading source of U.S. men's national team news. When in all actuality, I mean, Jordan, even some of the best, some of the, like Tommy Scoops, Doug McIntyre is a little harder just because he's so close with U.S. men's national team and what he reports for him. But none of the people that would typically have these scoops had anything. Like we just knew because of, I mean, Fox is the one that said that they were going to be announcing that there was something coming.
With the
And I think
future, yeah.
right. And that we didn't know what that meant, but we figured like as soon as that was announced, we knew that he was gone. But like you said, there's so much of that on US men's national Twitter. National team Twitter is a very volatile place. And there were a lot of people obviously wanting Gregg out, and because it didn't happen instantly, I think a lot of people were up in arms about it. But like you said, I was not shocked at all when they said it would be about a week. Once they said, once we started to get a timeline and it was a week, I mean, that's ultimately a board getting together who probably weren't together in the same location and probably met with Gregg and had the discussion with Gregg and, what does that future look like, and thanking him for all the things that he's done, but also giving Gregg the time and space to kind of figure things out a little bit, because I'm assuming that, he probably thought he had the job. Um, and when you hire somebody like they did in U.S. men's national team, I mean, this was a quick turnaround of it didn't go well. And this is also the U.S. men's national team. I think the federation kind of wanted a direction in which they were going in before they, just fired Gregg. I saw a bunch of jokes, Jordan, that were like, in about a month, they announced that Gregg Berhalter's taken over again as the U.S. men's national team coach. But all joking aside, I really do. I think it was needed. It's never handled well by U.S. men's national team Twitter. I think it's one of the more toxic areas when you get into professional sports. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's part of the problem. I think that's part of, these expectations and I mean, Jordan, we're every tournament that we're in, there's always racist comments thrown at some of these players. And it really, I mean, I think you see it across the international stage. I mean, just look at England. They're horrible to their people too. But it just this is such a bigger tournament, and soccer matters so much more in other different countries. And we'll get into other stories that we're going to cover today that, I mean, really emphasize just how crazy people get when it gets to this kind of level. And I'm not sure that there's anything that we don't see anything like this in other sports, but the U.S. men's national team, because I think the expectations were so high, that's why people wanted Gregg out quickly, and it didn't happen. But I kind of figured it was going to happen overnight. Like I figured they weren't going to drop out of the tournament and go, "Yep, Gregg's done." So
Yeah, I mean, it's it's crazy the way people were making up their own arguments to get mad at on Twitter. Oh, they're gonna keep him. They're gonna keep him. And then when it gets proven that they're not gonna keep him, then they make the jokes like, "Oh, they can rehire him just like they did." No, that was his contract was up last time. He didn't get fired. Once you fire somebody, you're not rehiring them, right? And I know some of those were jokes, but I'm sure there's some people that were like, "I wouldn't put it past them to do this." Um, I don't know. I'm just done with that sphere of Twitter right now because there is this belief that, th- in my opinion, no matter who they get for this job, they will not be received well. Right. And you have people that say, I want an international proven manager. That sounds great. That sounds great. Yeah. That's like me going, like, I want $1 million, right? Like, it sounds great. I don't have a plan for that. The $1 million wants me as well. Like, that's going to need to happen. It's, you can
Yeah.
entice them. You can try to get them on here, but here's the thing: international managers also like need to start somewhere, right? Like there is an international manager that's going to get his first international head coaching job, not with the US, but with somebody, and it's going to be the first experience he ever has. So it's okay for that country to do it, but it's not okay for us to do it, right? Like I don't understand why we have these weird lines in the sand when it comes to that stuff. Because guess what? Klopp isn't an international manager, and all the people wanting Klopp. I mean, he's international and he's managed, but he's not. He's never managed an international team, right? Like a national team. He's managed some of the biggest club teams, but it's a different job. And yes, I would have taken Klopp. He's already turned us down, but um, it's just funny when people say like, "Oh, well, we can't have like Trundalo because he doesn't have international experience," and it's like, well, Klopp doesn't, right? Like, there's other managers that don't have that experience, um, and everybody's got to start somewhere. So one of our best managers, Bruce Arena, right, started coaching college soccer. Yeah, go figure. I understand we're not at that point right now, but I do think sometimes, and I've started to see this change a little bit, Logan. But I do think sometimes the players get away with this a lot. The players have to actually do it on the field as well, right? Like, we all kind of agree that Weah kind of changed the trajectory here when he punched that player, right? Like that changes the trajectory of that Panama match. Um, where maybe we could have got a point, maybe we got all three. Who knows? But when that goes that way, then you're down for almost 70 minutes with down a man, and then you have the tough match of the group next. That's all like the players have to actually get it done. We have what people are calling a golden generation. I'm at the point of saying they're not a golden generation, right? Like, maybe they're the best players we've had at this time, talent wise. But man, sometimes they don't put on the U.S. shirt the way some players do back in the past, where they will like absolutely go all out for their team. Some of these players, obviously, because they're maybe more focused on their club, right? Because the club is the one paying the bills. The club is the one that they can get the bigger exposure on when it comes to worldwide stuff. So maybe some of them, it's not as big of a deal as it was for some of those other players in the past, right? Because I feel like Logan, when it comes to, and we're seeing that shift with the players that we have nowadays, right? Where they are on big clubs and they have exposure to big expectations. But it seems like, right, because of that, because they're used to being playing in like big clubs, and club soccer's on the rise over here. But when I was growing up, a lot of like US soccer fans were US soccer fans, right? Like, they weren't really watching like club teams. They were all watching like, oh, every 4 years the World Cup, right? So for some of those players, it meant more because they were getting showcased in front of everybody because it was the one time America really watches the sport. But now America watches a lot of those club teams, and the numbers are on the rise, and it's kind of like a whole different vibe now, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely one of those people too. I started watching soccer pretty frequently and regularly in 2014 after our program, and I watched U.S. men's national team mostly. And I like if I was going to watch U.S. soccer, it was going to be U.S. soccer. It wasn't going to be MLS, and MLS was around. I didn't start following MLS until 2020 when I watched MLS's back. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it really, like you said, I think there's a lot of things that still have to change for the US, and I think that's a thing that we're forgetting as well, and I know it sucks, but, like, these clubs, Jordan, like, these they've been playing soccer since, like, the 17th what was it, 18th century? Like, in the 1700 like, as soon as a ball could roll, these people were playing some kind of, organized game of football, as they called it, but, I mean, they've been playing it for hundreds of years. US is very young, and all of our focus for athletes has gone to other sports, but I think as you're now starting to see, and the US poses a threat that no other country has to deal with, maybe besides hockey, and that is our best athletes do not play soccer because they are not paid as some of the top athletes would be. Our top athletes, Jordan, are playing basketball and football. So, that's where a lot of our top athletes, and I don't think that changes football. Yes, I think with all the concussion stuff going on, I think that it changes, and you do start to see more people leaning into some of these sports like soccer, and soccer's grown pretty drastically here in the United States, but it still has a way to go. And the other thing too that I think people forget, Jordan, is the USA has to have sustainable success for one of these managers to even come close to thinking about this position. Jurgen Klopp would have thought about this position had it been, the US has been in back to back to back to back World Cups. They always make the round of 16.
You think
If this
so?
was I think so. I think if Germany approached Jurgen Klopp in the next, I think Klopp's a little different just because of the whole
I
mental
think he is burnt
state that
out.
he's
Yeah,
in. Yeah, I do
I was
too.
gonna say I don't think he would
Yeah.
have taken this.
No, but like throw another manager in there, right? And we'll talk about some of the candidates because there's one on there that is intriguing to me why he would be interested. But I still think the club international coaches and the coaches that are thinking about coaching internationally, there's a lot of jobs that fall like every cycle. It seems to be that the top, 6 or 7, they have 2 or 3 spots open, and that's where those managers are going. So we're like, if you put it in comparison, Jordan, this would be like if I don't know, West Ham or Brighton Hove Albion approached you and was like, "Hey, you want a job?" And Manchester City is sitting there going, "Come coach with us." And who are you going to go with? Right? You're going to go with one that's had more sustainable successes. Couldn't get it out there, but
I would push a little bit back on that because I think World Cups are a little bit of extenuating circumstance because when it comes to this is a host country. They don't have to worry about qualifying at
yeah,
all, right? So you kind of got an easy gig for the first 2 years of this
that's true.
job,
Yeah,
where you're like, all right, I'm just gonna be doing scouting. I'm gonna be doing friendlies, whatever. Um, and they don't have to work, like full time. International coaches talk all the time about how it's a little bit different because they're not working every day, and that's why some managers stay club managers because they like the day in day out grind. So I do think for some people this could be very lucrative or attractive because I think U.S. Soccer can pay a good salary. I keep seeing people say they can't, and they're basing it off the fact that we have to pay the women's coach equal. But if you look at a lot of these other nations that have international coaches, they're around the salary Gregg made anyway. So I don't think it's that big of a problem. I really don't. Um, I mean, you're not going to get like Ancelotti or Klopp with the money probably, but I also think I kind of think they wouldn't mind breaking the bank for a coach right now too. I don't think they'll be like, well, just because we've paid Emma Hayes this, we can't
yeah,
pay Klopp this. Like I think if the coach is out there, they'll do it, and then they'll either bump up Emma Hayes's pay or they'll just say, guess what, we're done with the equal pay for coaches. Um, so that's kind of I do think this is an attractive job. Is it as attractive as some are making it out to be? Maybe not. But I do think with the player pool where it is at right now, you don't have to qualify because there's other jobs out there that some of these coaches are up for where they'll have to qualify for the World Cup, and it might be tough. If you are guaranteed that, and then you're going to actually host the World Cup, that's a little special too because you're going to get one of the first games of the tournament. Wherever you're living at during that time, you can still live there because the tournament's there. Like, it seems like it would be a really Great job. Now, here's the thing what I was referring to earlier. It is just uh, when you're talking about international coaches and stuff, it's like, okay, who are you talking about? Everybody just wants a top international guy, but not all of those are available, right? And I guess we'll start talking about the candidates now. So Klopp, no, right? Now we did hear reports from Stephen Goff yesterday that said Luis de la Fuente, who just won the Euros with Spain, his representatives told them that he's interested. Now, I don't know if this is who you were referring to when you were just talking about somebody intriguing you.
Yeah.
This one intrigued me. And then, obviously reports today from people saying he's actually not interested. It's leverage with Spain, which does make sense because look, you just won the Euros with Spain and you have a really good team and you can go win the World Cup in 2 years with
Yeah.
that Spain team. Why would you ever downgrade to the US, right? And I don't mean that as a slight to our team. It's just like, look, Spain is Spain, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, they were the best team in that Euros and they won it, and they're gonna be favorites. They're gonna be one of the favorites in 2 years, especially when you have like Lamine Yamal, another
Yeah.
couple years older, right? You get these players older, the squad looking in better shape. He's gonna get a raise. He's gonna use that with Spain. There's no way he's coming here. If he is actually interested, though, yeah, sign him up, right? Like that's
Yeah.
one of those easy things where you're like, oh, are you really interested? Because we'll pay you.
Yeah. No, I think that was the interesting one. The next one on your list is the one that I actually think is more realistic and intriguing, to say the least. But
Yeah,
yeah,
the
the
same
Luis one
report,
is, but
that said that De La Fuente is using it as leverage, said that Rafa Benitez is interested. So last we've seen Rafa Benitez was at Celta Vigo for 2023 through 2024. He managed Celta Vigo. Before that, he was, of course, at Everton. And before that, he was in I forgot he went to China for a few years.
huh?
Dalian professional. But of course, most people know him from Liverpool, 04 to 2010, where he managed that Liverpool side. He was pretty good there. Liverpool fans, I don't think really liked him, but he was there for 6 years. So he had success. I know Chelsea fans did not like him, but he was at Chelsea as an interim manager, one of their 20 interim managers that they've had recently. Then he went to Napoli, Real Madrid, Newcastle. He's been around. I think this would be a very interesting hire because this is one of those that I think you would say, if you want a top international guy, somebody that's actually interested, if it's true that he is interested, this is probably the top guy available when we're talking about that. I know people want to say Hervé Renard, right? But I don't know if we're going there. I picked him after World Cup 2022, right? I said,
Yeah.
oh, go get him. Now he's dealing with the Olympics. He's the French women's manager right now, so his contract will go up at a certain point, and it sounds like he has offers from a whole bunch of other countries. So we'll see. I know some people are probably going to throw out, but Rafa's Celta Vigo record was not great, but it's like they're Celta Vigo. Like I don't know what
Yeah.
else to tell you.
Yeah. No,
I mean,
and like
go ahead.
played it or coached or managed the Liverpool team. Um, that I mean, people I think of Liverpool, or they'll think of Liverpool as like the Liverpool nowadays, and they weren't that. They weren't that. They were good, but they weren't like the Liverpool nowadays, where it seems like they have infinite cash and constantly spend. However, I do feel like Rafa's kind of one of those names, right? That people don't really think about, and maybe you're like, what kind of situation does Rafa benefit in? But
Mhm.
I think this might be something that he benefits in. I don't know why. I just feel I think it's honestly it's the I guess it's the experience matched with some of the players that he's coached with, some of the teams that he's coached, and situations that he's been in. I'm looking at the list, and if you're going to have another name, which I would say he's not my top. I have a top target in mind. It's on this list that we have, but this one is not. If we hired him, he is definitely an upgrade from Gregg Berhalter.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah.
like
I mean,
no doubt.
no doubt, no doubt. I'm sure
So
some people will spin this a certain way,
yeah, they will. Yeah,
but
because he's not lasted in places, but he did
I'm
last in
gonna read you
Liverpool.
this. I'm gonna read you his wins here. Okay, Valencia, he won La Liga in 01, 02, right? The
Mhm.
02 season, the 04 season. So that's two La Ligas for Valencia. He won a UEFA Cup in 04. That is what is now called the Europa League. At Liverpool, he won an FA Cup in 06, a Community Shield in 06, a UEFA Champions League in 05, runner up in 07, a Super Cup UEFA win in 05, League Cup runner up in 05, and a FIFA Club World Championship runner up in 05. Inter Milan, he won the Supercoppa Italiana 2010, FIFA Club World Cup 2010. Chelsea, he won the Europa League in 2012-2013 season. Napoli, he won the Coppa Italia in 2014 and the Supercoppa Italiana in 14. Newcastle, he won the EFL Championship in 2017. He's won UEFA Manager of the Year twice, La Liga Best Coach once, Premier League Manager of the Month like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. I mean, this, if he is actually interested, he does speak English too. Like, remember how, I don't know if you remember
Yeah,
this, but Tata Martino was interested before Gregg, and they said, no, you have to speak
yeah,
English. Well, guess what? Rafa, from what I remember when he was in England, speaks English.
yeah. Yes,
So,
because Liverpool and Everton, I don't think would have hired him had he not.
right. So I say, go for it. I don't
Yeah,
think he's my number one, but I mean, like, if he's available, you have to at least meet with the guy if
right.
he's actually interested. Which again, reports say he is.
Yeah, and all of our players play in Italy now, so like he knows the style of play they've been playing. So it's I feel like with the players that we have, he'd actually be a good fit because I mean he's kind of that underdog kind of he's always been scrappy. I know he's always kind of spoke his mind, and I think that's what this U.S. team needs. Like I think he's definitely more disciplined than Greg. I think you get good attacking football out of him too, but he also
Well,
knows the importance of defense.
but
So
I
it's
also
like,
think it's you immediately have a guy that they all respect.
yes,
Like, immediately, they'll be, oh yeah,
yeah,
this guy has a pedigree. We're going to respect this guy. Yeah.
yeah. And we're gonna learn. Like I think that's the other thing that we forget that I'm not sure Greg is that person that was developing the players, right? He's that friendly manager that was a nice guy. You know,
Mhm.
that's what I honestly felt about Greg. I do think the players respected him. When I went over this in my live, I was like, players loved Greg, but I think that was because he's not the disciplinary. He's not the get into it with the player and kind of give them the tough love. I think Rafa is that. And I think there's two people on this list coming up that are in that same kind of mold that Rafa Benitez is. So I like these three candidates, honestly, if these are the three that we're going with. I'm not sure the last one. That'll be an interesting when we get to that last one on the list. But
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk Trundolo. Right. I think most people do think that this is who we'll eventually get. Right. It just seems like the for sure thing. And I'm gonna back up Trundolo here, okay? Because I'm tired of the slander making it sound like he's just some MLS guy. His record at Las Vegas Lights, all that kind of stuff. All right. One, I brought up that record when he was hired as LAFC.
yep.
Remember when that happened? And I was like, I don't
Oh
know
yeah.
how this is gonna go. I like
Yep.
Trundolo, but like this Las Vegas
Yeah.
Lights record. Here's the thing, too. I'm hearing from LA fans and Las Vegas fans that he kind of had a mandate given to him of playing the young guys and getting them experience and all that kind of stuff. So he's given the squad. He does what he can with it, right? He immediately goes to LAFC. And I hear the complaints of people saying, well, they have the best squad. I don't think they actually have the best squad. And he's doing very well with them. And then you get the people saying 3 finals lost last year. And I'll say the same thing I said to them last year. I'd rather be playing in 3 finals than not even getting to those finals. So, he's won an MLS Cup. He's won a supporter shield, right? Uh he's right. He won supporter shield the first year, right?
Yeah.
And then MLS Cup.
Yeah.
Oh no, he won it that same year. That's right. They won it that same
Did they
year
really? I
because
thought it
they
was
were
2 different
no,
years.
they were the best team and we were second and we lost in LA because they had
Oh,
hosted.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yep.
they won it in the same year.
Mm.
Um, they had a little bit of a down year last year, still got to 3 finals, and then this year started off a little slow, and they're right back there again, right? I mean, that's even without Giroux coming in yet, fully. So I think, and he has that European experience everybody wants. He has UEFA licenses. He coached in the Hanover 96 youth development teams. He started as their right back for years. That's the whole reason I'm a Hanover 96 fan. I took a German class in freshman year, Logan, and they had a video where they were, you know, some sort of video that they show us in class, right?
Yeah.
And it was about Americans abroad and living in Germany. And they focused on Hanover 96 because they had Steve Trundolo and DeMarcus Beasley
Right.
both over there. And they were highlighted in this video. And I was like, that's my soccer team now. I'm going to be a Hanover 96 fan in Germany because of this link with the U.S. men's national team. And Trundolo was one of my favorite players growing up when I was watching those teams. You know, I think he can do this. He played for those really good U.S. teams. I know Gregg played for some of them, but he was not. Gregg was more of a fringe player than Cherundolo was, who was like in the back line day in day out. He played in top flight. Hanover might be in the second Bundesliga now, but they were one of the top teams, constantly in Europa League when he was playing there. So he has that experience. He's coached in the UEFA licenses. He has the youth. I think Trundolo can do this. And I think in any other country, Logan, this would be seen as a really great hire. Uh, like if Trundolo was English and he got the coaching job after putting in that work at Hanover and being like, I think they would think it's a good, maybe not England because England's weird, but I think like if Trundolo was German, let's say, and he got this, I think that'd be fine because a lot of the German coaches come up through the ranks of other like German coaches or through the youth squads and stuff like that. Not a lot of them are big names before they take over the team, right? Like Jurgi Low was the Klinsmann's like right hand man and took over that, and actually was kind of the brains behind the Klinsmann teams. We find out later. Um, so that kind of stuff I think in any other country, Trundolo would be seen as a really great hire, but for some reason, the US fans just see MLS, no thanks, and forget about all the hard work he's done over in Germany and in the UEFA licenses and all that great stuff. So that, in my opinion, I think Trundolo would actually be a really great hire. Sue me.
Nope, I'm right there with you. He's number 1 on my list, and the reason behind it, I feel like he knows the fabric of U.S. men's national team, but like the good side. I feel like Greg's in like the kind of the ones that are on the sideline gossiping about the good times, right? Like, I this would be it'd be kind of similar to like if you have that bench player that all of a sudden becomes a head coach, or do you have this like gritty U.S. men's national team player who is in that same mold as like a Dempsey or like a DeMarcus Beasley, or he's got like that Donovan build, that just that mold. And it seems like he, from his time at LAFC, Jordan, like even in years that they've been, or this year, sorry, that they've not been great, but then all of a sudden they're great again. It just reminds me of just how much I think the players respect Steve. And now Steve has coached. I mean, look at the players now that he will have coached or is coaching. In a short time, in a short stint, he's coached international talent. He had to deal with Gareth Bale. So, and I joked about this last show. I said anybody has to deal with Gareth Bale on a team should be awarded any job that they want. So, but again, I people will say, well, he's not done it. He's not coached international players. He's not done this. He's not coached our players. Well, Rafa hasn't either. I mean, it's that same thing where Rafa hasn't coached our players. Like, I hate that excuse too. Like, these are different players than what I was like. You don't think that Rafa would step in and go, well, this is different, because he's not shown any kind of international experience. Neither has Steve. Like, but I do. I feel like from what we just had, we need a cleanse, and I feel like Steve is the guy. I don't know what it is about him, but I like kind of just that grittiness that I think he has, and he stepped into the hugest, the biggest market that you could step in MLS, and has exceeded expectations tremendously. And honestly, if he coaches 5 more years, we're going to be talking about why Steve Cherundolo is the best manager in MLS. That's just my honest opinion, because he doesn't have the talent. Like this team before these other pieces are starting to join, they were not as good as some of the top teams in MLS. They just weren't. Like
Yeah.
on paper, we talked about this, and that's why the season started so slow. But he somehow has figured out again another way for all these players that are just a collection of really good players to come together and be that star. So,
I'm tired of people using one result too. Like,
right.
obviously, we're talking about Columbus just smashed them like 5-1, and people are like, of course, the people that usually don't watch MLS are like, well, I'm watching Nancy versus Trundle to see who should
Yeah.
get the job, and I think Nancy impressed me more. It's like, well, yeah, Nancy is probably the best coach in Major League Soccer, and we'll move on to him now. He is one of the candidates I would say that people would look to and say, oh, this is who we should get. I don't think he's interested. I think he's on that chart to Europe, and I think he is like probably going to get an opportunity, especially with how good this Columbus team's been, especially if they make another good run this postseason. I wouldn't be shocked if he's, in Europe in a couple years. And I think taking the U.S. job can only hurt his standing. I think for Trundolo, it can help his standing, actually. But I think for Nancy, it would maybe hurt his standing if you're trying to get to a European club. I think with Trundolo, maybe the ultimate goal is U.S. men's national team, right? I mean, like I'm sure like some players want to become U.S. players. I'm sure some coaches want to become the U.S. coach, right? Like I feel like that's natural. But yeah, so I think those are the main candidates. We'll see how it comes out. Jonathan Tannenwald did report, and I know people don't trust U.S. soccer and they feel like some of this is just lip service, whatever. And you know what? If Trundle gets hired, that's all they're going to think this was anyway. But I do think you can do a hiring and then still end up thinking Trundle is the best candidate for you. Just as significant, multiple sources with direct knowledge of the search process have said that the search process won't include just domestic candidates and won't give just a token nod to international candidates. What they're referring to is like, being like, oh, we interviewed, Zidane. Remember how they said they reached out to Zidane last time? What they're saying is it's not going to be like that. And here's a quote from Crocker I was referring to earlier. I'm 12 months into the program now. I'm in a better place to have a much more of a targeted search where I'll be more inclined to go hard and go early with specific candidates that I feel meet the criteria we're looking for. I think that was a big hindrance, Logan, when it comes to when Crocker
Absolutely.
stepped in last time.
Yep.
It was after Ernie Stewart had left. They had to hire a GM. He comes in, he has to make this hire and to prepare for Copa. And it's like, yeah, and it sounds like reports say maybe Marsh was going to be the option. The players pushed back and he went with Gregg because that was a safe choice. Yeah, but I think he was always keeping in mind that Gregg might not be the World Cup manager. I think that was always kind of in the back of Crocker's mind of maybe once I get more settled, we see how Copa goes. Crap, it went bad. Now I can make my mark. And he has more of those connections. He's now been in the job for a year. I think he feels more comfortable.
Yeah, I think you make a good point. And I know this sounds silly, but they did hire a new director of marketing, and that works with U.S. Federation, and that's a big deal because it sounds like Crocker has come in and this was and Jesse Marsh, and we can talk a little bit about that because that was interesting too. But Jesse's came out and said that he would not ever deal with U.S. men's national team ever again. The federation was a joke, pretty much in a really bad spot. It was the biggest I guess, disaster that he's ever seen. Now, I saw a lot of U.S. men's national team Twitter obviously going, once Canada started winning in Copa, Jordan, it all blew up. And I saw all the stuff because this was in the time when we hadn't announced yet that Gregg was. So, naturally they're catching on to everything. Guys, you have to realize that I like Jesse as a person. I think he's a good manager. I don't think he's great. And I don't think players like him as much. Like, You had Tyler Adams working with him and Weston McKennie too. You've had players that have played for him, and they're the ones that pushed back. I trust Tyler Adams. If Tyler Adams didn't have a good experience with Jesse Marsh, I don't want Jesse Marsh anywhere near this team. And I don't think they had a good time when they were at Leeds. So I think that has a lot to do with it. But you also have to remember this guy just got rejected a job that he was posturing for on national television during Gold Cup as Greg's trying to coach. Like this guy,
Yeah.
don't forget about that. Don't
And
forget
let's not
Jesse
forget,
Marsh.
people were all over Jesse March when he failed at
Yes,
Leeds, and they were also all over him when he called Musa Yusuf Musa, right? So, I mean, you
yeah,
can't just take all that back now because Canada played well. And actually, Canada did play well. I want to give it up for
they
Canada.
did.
But
Yep.
if you look at their stats, it wasn't great, right? Like it was one win, and it was I think they scored one goal in the
Yeah.
group stage. They kind of got lucky that those other two teams sucked as much as they did. Now, of course, look, they did better than the US. I'm going to give it up to Canada. I don't actually hate them the way a lot of the US fans do right now. I was rooting for them to beat Uruguay in the third place match, but and they almost did. They took the lead late, couldn't seal it. But yeah, I didn't know if you know this, but actually, a MLS player scored the equalizer that sent it to penalties. Did you know that? Luis Suarez?
No. Yeah, Jordan MLS players don't score goals in Copa. That's it. You're lying. You're lying.
I don't
They
know if
did
he's good.
ruin
If he's
Messi.
good enough for Uruguay, I don't know.
They did ruin Messi. Messi may never play again. Did you see his ankle? Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my god, it looks so
It's
swollen.
so gross. Poor guy.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I'm actually wearing my Messi jersey as a pour one out for Messi type of situation today. So, but they won Copa America. Uh, let's get into it. We're not going to barely talk MLS here. Okay, Copa mess is the next topic I want to talk about here because Logan, it was a mess. If you saw what people were sharing, um, look, we do AC Memento, right? Like the app where you can track your games and stuff. John Brennan, who created that app, was going with Tactical Manager, right, to the game because they give tickets to these people to get into these games. And even they could not get into this
Yep.
match because of the mess. And now I know all around the world now we're starting to see people say, oh, US shouldn't host this stuff anymore. I want to point out everybody that talked, Jonathan Tannenwald's confirmed this a million times, by the way. So make sure you follow him if you're not. But he's a very anti BS guy. He's gonna get to the bottom of it. He's not a
He's not a
shill.
hot take monger.
He's not a
Yeah.
hot take, right? He's giving you the facts, Mr. Tannenwald. Thank you. Um, he's clarified a million times, and CONCACAF has clarified this too because they were like, "Hey, stop throwing us our name in this."
Yeah,
Con
CONCACAF's like, we don't want anything to do with this.
CONMEBOL is the one in charge of this tournament. In 2016, U.S. Soccer and CONCACAF did contribute to running this tournament for Copa America Centenario. And it went without a hitch, by the way. It went off without a hitch. This tournament, CONMEBOL said, from what we understand, they said no, and that they were going to run the show. And that's why last night was a disaster. It sounds like they didn't have the security perimeters as far back as like FIFA usually does. Because I'm reading stuff that people said, hey, the FIFA plans for 2026 are already online, and you can see that the security is going to be further back. They're going to have more space to do this. They're not going to let this happen. FIFA doesn't let this happen. And I'm inclined to believe that. And I think there's certain people that want to push that we're not prepared for this, but Logan, that stadium, you've been there. It's your football team stadium where they have the same amount of fans there every Sunday. Well, sometimes, right? Sometimes it's
Well, I was gonna say that's a little dramatic there, Jordan.
they've run Super
Dude, they've
Bowls,
had
they've
Super
had
Bowls and
Taylor
national college
Swift,
champions.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, they've
the
had
college national
everything
championships. F1.
without a hitch. So, oh, hi, Cat.
They're
Um,
fighting.
so that for me just shows that Common Bowl was not prepared for this. Uh, And it sounds like from what I've read from other people that are familiar with CONMEBOL, this is not surprising on how they run this stuff any other time outside of the US too. So
Yes. Yeah.
I'm look, we'll be fine. 2026 will be fine. We'll get a better sense of it in Club World Cup. I know they won't have as big of fans there probably, but it'll be a FIFA run event. We'll see how FIFA handles all that stuff. It'll be fine.
Yeah, no, again, we host Super Bowls with hundreds of thousands of people that are knocking in the door. Like you said, if the Swifties haven't taken over a stadium yet, I think we're doing a good job because the Swifties could overrun any security detail that there ever would be. So, no, I this is I mean, people they were going through the vents, like they destroyed the place. I mean, there's pictures and videos of escalators being torn up. Um, it's too bad, honestly, and it's dangerous. I mean, you're playing in now in front of 60 to 80,000. I forget how much Hard Rock because we never fill it for space football. Sorry, wrong sport. But yeah, it was a disaster. I think it was one of the worst security, but breaches ever at a sporting event. And I mean, you could have had people in there with weapons, or there was one. Jordan, did you see the video of the dog inside of the stadium?
No,
There's a video of the people brought in their dog because they're like, well, hell, we'll just go in and bring the dog with them. So yeah, there's like a
there's
little
so many
dog that
people
yeah,
that got in there without tickets and had to get removed throughout the
yep,
game. Also, by the way, CONMEBOL just released a statement saying, in this situation, CONMEBOL was subject to decisions made by the Hard Rock Stadium authorities, according to contractual responsibilities established for security. So CONMEBOL is trying to throw this onto Hard Rock.
yep, that yeah.
Not great. It's going to be a blame game. We'll see. Everybody still thinks it's going to be probably a lawsuit incoming. We'll see. And I guess what? I don't think Copa America will take place in the USA ever again, unless if US Soccer or CONCACAF is involved in making sure that it doesn't go like this. I think it's just too much of a mess. People were going in through the vents. I mean, it was crazy.
Oh, it's the craziest thing I've ever seen at a sporting event. But then you know how I know it's all when I had former students say, no, that was a pretty normal thing in Brazil for them like
Mm.
rushing the gates to get in. Like it just happened quite often.
Yeah,
So
Miami's not used to that because the Dolphins are
no,
not typically a
no,
team that you're
the,
trying to go
yeah,
through the
they're
vents
like
for.
yeah, the guys, these poor security guards are the people that are like begging people off the streets to come hang out in the stadium because we got to fill seats.
You know, I
Like
don't even feel bad for. I feel bad for the security team too because they're like, we
yeah.
don't see this every Sunday. What is
no,
this?
no. I actually, Jordan, I saw that picture and I was like, I'm actually worried about structural integrity here because, like, it's not used to holding that many people. It's
The
not the bounce
escalators
house.
too were
Yeah, yeah,
destroyed. Did you see
yeah,
that?
yeah. Awful stuff.
Well, out of the spotlight of the world stage, MLS had its 26th match day, and some big results happened that we got to quickly talk about here. Um, we had Charlotte beat FC Cincinnati 3-1 at TQL, by the way. We had Orlando beat New England 3-1 as Orlando's kind of bouncing back. We had Philly blow another late lead 2-1. Toronto wins that game. We had Dallas beat LA Galaxy. Houston and Minnesota drew. We had Portland beat RSL 3-0. Columbus beat LAFC 5-1. Logan, I think I think it was the top 3 teams in the West all lost this this weekend. It's crazy.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
all
No,
on 43 points now, too.
right. No, I was looking at like I'm looking at the form guide and like all the teams towards the top, like, one through five have all dropped their last game. it's it doesn't happen that frequently in MLS. Like usually when the top teams are going, they're going, and they're all then if they're not, like there's one or two that aren't. But like it was everybody. and then some of the bottom teams have kind of resurfaced all of a sudden. That's like, again, there's parity here, and we talked about that a little bit where the summer could get interesting. It really didn't. Like it really hasn't yet. I know we've got Leagues Cup coming up, so that should change things. But I'm interested to kind of see what happens, as far as MLS is concerned. Now that we've had, I mean, this is the most, Jordan, I think, competitions that we've ever seen within an MLS season that
Mm,
have really impacted things. So I guess we'll see. I know there's a lot of teams that are going to be missing players, and it looks like Messi's going to be missing some time now.
yeah.
How seriously, like, I know we said this, but like, how long can Miami sustain that top of the Eastern Conference run?
Well, if Cincinnati plays like Saturday,
That's true.
they can.
That's true. That's true. That is true. Jordan, the Orlando will be in first soon. That'll be great.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you who's not going to be in first. Philadelphia. They're last place of the East now, as every other team has kind of leapfrogged them. We also had, yeah. So all of the top teams in the West lost, and then you also had the top team in the East lose with Cincinnati. Just crazy. If you look at the Open Cup as well, Tuesday, Indy 11 beat Atlanta. Seattle beat Sacramento. So they're moving on. Forge FC beat Toronto in the Canadian Championship. We had Kansas City beat Dallas in the Open Cup, and LAFC beat New Mexico 3-1 in the Open Cup. And Vancouver beat Pacific FC in the Canadian Championship as well, as that's getting narrowed down. We got games on Wednesday, by the way, as well. We got a full slate of those coming up. Any other things I had listed here? Of course, Columbus beat LAFC 5-1. There's like 3 red cards in that match. Insane. All right, now I do want to talk about this before we go too. They've released, Logan, the roster for the MLS All-Star Skills Challenge. I went to this last year. It was a lot of fun. So if you're in the Columbus area, I think tickets are like $15 for the skills competition. Oh, it says $25 now. Ooh, still not bad. Go ahead and get your tickets for the skills comp. I'm sure you can find cheaper than $25 if you need to. But it's a lot of fun. Here's the rosters for the All-Stars. Liga MX and MLS, again, are facing off. MLS All-Stars. Luciano Acosta, Jordi Alba, Bernadeschi, Sergio Busquets, Roman Burki, Evander, Ryan Gold, Chucho Hernandez, Martin Pease, Ricky Puge, Sasha Kleshtin as an MLS great. That's interesting. And Diana Ordonez from the Houston Dash.
I haven't seen Deanna in a long time.
This is interesting. This is really interesting because, Logan, I heard a rumor by somebody that maybe MLS is looking to purchase NWSL.
Ooh. Hey, that would be a hell of an announcement to make over this break, huh?
I don't know if they would announce it now, but the fact that there's an NWSL player is
yeah, it's kind of interesting. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's...
With all that Apple money, baby. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Liga MX All-Stars, Roberto Alvarado from Guadalajara, Juan Brunetta from Tigres, Sergio Canales from Monterrey, Jonathan Dos Santos from Club America, Andreas Guardado from Club Leon, Cesar Huerta from Pumas, Luis Malagan from Club America, Kevin Meyer from Cruz Azul, Gonzalo Piovi from Cruz Azul, Salomon Rondon from Pachuca, Luis Hernandez, Liga MX great, and Alicia Cervantes from Guadalajara, women's team. So we have 2 women competing, one from Liga MX, or the women's Liga MX. I don't know what they call that over there. Oh, Liga MX Femenil. And then we have the Houston Dash player. We have, and then 2 greats. An MLS great, Sasha Kleshtin. Look, I love Kleshtin. Great might be a little bit of a stretcher. Luis Hernandez on Liga MX is great.
We got to sell Apple subscriptions, Jordan.
And then we were bringing back Goalie Wars. This was a lot of fun to watch when I was there.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Jean Antone from Chattanooga, Michael Collody from North Texas SC, Stas Lapkes from Columbus Crew 2, and Chituro Undunzi from Crown Legacy FC. This is where the goalkeepers defend their own net while also trying to score on the opponent goalkeeper by throwing, kicking, or drop kicking the ball. That lasts for 90 seconds for 3 rounds each. All right, that's your skills comp. That's going to be on the 26th, I believe it is. 23rd? Man, it's got to be midweek. 23rd, July 23rd at 7:30 at lower.com field. So coming up Wednesday this week, we have Atlanta NYCFC at 7:30, Cincinnati Chicago, Columbus Charlotte, Miami Toronto, Red Bulls Montreal, Philly versus New England. Then at 8:30 we have Dallas Austin, Minnesota DC, Nashville Orlando. That one's also on FS1, by the way, and free on Apple TV. 10:30 we have LA Galaxy and Colorado, San Jose Houston, Seattle St. Louis, Vancouver SKC, and at 10:45 free on Apple TV and FS1, LAFC and RSL, which has got to be game of the week, I think, if we're being serious here. Then on Saturday we have Atlanta Columbus at 7:30, Miami Chicago, Montreal Toronto, New England Dallas, Red Bull Cincinnati, Orlando NYCFC, Philly versus Nashville. Then at 8:30 we have Austin Charlotte. That sounds like I'm talking about people or one person's name. SKC St. Louis, Minnesota San Jose, and then at 9:30 Colorado RSL, 10:30 Seattle LAFC, Vancouver and Houston, and then at 10:45 LA Galaxy versus Portland. That's shaping up to be a really great match. And that one is also free on FS1 as well as SKC St. Louis. Any thoughts on those matchups? Some good games, I think.
I was gonna say that's a really good slate. There was a couple weeks here that I was reading off games going, oh gosh, and then they ended up being surprisingly good. But yeah, no, I think the LAFC game and RSL game, like the LAFC RSL game, is going to be really good. Really looking forward to that. I think that'll be a battle. That'll be Wednesday at 10:45. It's really late for Logan, so I have to follow results of that one. But Red Bull and Cincinnati on Saturday. That should be a fun one too at Red Bull Arena. You and Philly and Nashville can kind of play around at the bottom of the Eastern Conference standings if they want. So yeah, all sorts of good stuff, Jordan. I'm excited. Two match days in 1 week is a lot, though. They need to stop doing that.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. Well, it makes sense. There's going to be the All-Star break here.
It's true.
So, got to get this in. And then we got Leagues Cup kicking off right after that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
End of July. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. So we got to do Leagues Cup prep here because, okay. So here's what's probably going to happen next week. We're going to, we just set the stage for the skills comp. We're not going to cover that much. Well, we'll preview the All-Star game, and then we'll preview Leagues Cup next week because it actually kicks off Friday the 26th. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So we'll have to talk about the games that happened.
Thanks, MLS.
We'll have to talk about the games that just happened, and then we'll the games we just talked about coming up, the 2 match days, and then we'll have to talk about previewing Leagues Cup next week. It won't be heavy on U.S. men's national team, I don't think, because there's not going to be much. I do think the search is going to take a while, so I don't think it's going to be like...
They're going to be like, you know what? Let's hire a manager.
Let's hire Trundle right now, right?
Right. Let's hire Pep Guardiola.
Who says no in that situation?
Nobody says no to that. Doesn't happen, but nobody says no.
Yeah, so then we have Leagues Cup kicking off on Friday the 26th, and those are games like every day. So stay tuned for our everyday cover. I'm just kidding.
Yep. Tune in live for our 3-hour shows.
Every day. after the final whistle.
Hey, if somebody wants to pay Jordan and I to get
Yeah,
on
we'll do it for
TV,
pay. Yes, if
yeah,
people do want to pay for us, look, we'll even do it on Galazzo. All right, well,
let's do it. Golazo.
we'll do it on CBS Galazzo. Yeah, so that about wraps us up here. Uh, Dang, what a week! What a week to come back to. Lots of stuff going on. Next week, it kicks into a whole other gear. And then also next week, we get the start of the Olympics. So we got a lot going on here on the podcast. It was a great time for me to be done my paternity leave here, get back in the podcasting chair. You can send us any sort of feedback at Stateside Show, or you can also leave it on the comments here, or email us statesideshow@gmail.com. If you want to tell me how wrong I am for backing Cherundolo, go ahead. If you want to tell me how much Rafa Benitez sucks, go ahead. I'm not going to listen to you, but you can leave it in the comments, or you can email it to us, and just be nice is all I ask. Yeah, so that's what we're going to be, where you can reach us. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll catch you next time when we talk about the All-Star festivities and Leagues Cup preview.